Hi, my name is Justin, aka Ghost Reader, and today we are going to be doing another review. And today we're going to be doing a review of the case against free speech, the First Amendment, Fascism, and the Future of Dissent by P.E. Moskowitz. I got this book, or the art for this book, in exchange for a review. I got this from NetGalley, and the publisher is Hatchet Book Group, and this actually came out on August 13th, so it's actually in stores now if you're interested. So what is this book about? I got this book because free speech is something that has become a very hot topic today in the United States, because we're, with the rise of a lot of hate speech and a lot of groups that say that they are allowed to say those things. And they're protected by the Constitution. There's been a lot of debate over whether that certain types of speech should be protected or not protected. And so basically Moskowitz, who's a journalist himself, takes a quite an interesting view of the whole free speech debate, and kind of gives a history lesson, and a look and critique not only of what free speech has been in like the past, the present, but also what it may look like in the future. So he starts out talking about his experiences in Charlottesville. He was there. He was actually president of Charlottesville when all that went on, and talks about the free speech debates that spun out of that, and talks about the fact that this isn't something that is new. This is something that's been happening for a while. For example, on college campuses, we've been hearing a lot of talk about that. You have the events at UC Berkeley, where students got together and stopped a person from speaking because they considered what he was going to say very harmful. And he actually relates two campus events in this book, Middlebury, I think, Evergreen and Middlebury, if I'm not mistaken, were the name of the college campuses. It talks about how this isn't anything new, that students have been speaking out for what they believe should be taught or not taught on campus since the 60s and 70s. And this is simply a continuation of that, but that the alt-rights and some conservatives have twisted the narrative to make it seem like this is some new breed of snowflake liberal college students that are against all speech. And when you really look at it, or not against all speech, but against free speech, and when you really look at a lot of these students themselves, say they were conflicted over whether or not where they fall in the free speech debate, but they do think that some speech, which can be harmful or racist or xenophobic, should not be said on college campuses, and they're kind of stepping up to that. And you have conservatives offering, or have been really successful offering, and Moskowitz says, offering a view that their view is unbiased and is open and invites all views, unlike their liberal opponents. However, Moskowitz points out that a lot of the silencing, you may see like liberal students being vocal and silencing people by protesting and not having speakers speak. But on the conservative side, it's a bit more sinister, because you see a lot of that harassment comes in the form of like online harassment, and certain groups use those tactics to silence their opponents, their liberal opponents. So he then delves into like the history of like free speech, how in the United States it's just really an ideal. We never really had what we'll call like a pure form of free speech. The government has always been willing at times to step up and say you can or cannot say this. For example, during World War I, Wilson put some laws into place that prevented you from speaking out against the war. That goes counter to the First Amendment, but people were arrested and put in jail because they spoke out against the war, which they saw as unjust. And he goes through all these different examples of where the government basically stepped in and said, like, no, you can't say that. It's kind of a relatively recent idea that the government, in United States history, that the government should not censor or control speech. He then talks about some protests that happened, because not only talking about like debates and speakers talking, but also how this affects protests. And he mentions Trump, a protest of Trump inauguration, and also the protest at Standing Rock against the oil pipeline that was going to be put in. and how the government and police forces kind of stepped in and suppressed those protests as well, during and after some of these events, and how those efforts could affect protest and free speech in the future. He also remarks that a lot of the pressure that you see the government putting on certain groups when they kind of speak out against the status quo, usually when it threatens either government or capitalist values or goals, what you see is that usually they put enough pressure on these groups either to silence them completely or turn them moderate. This happened with like the ACLU, which at one time was a very radical organization, but now it's kind of moderate, neutral, and in the middle. And basically what he points out is that with the route we're going with, like, so companies like Amazon and Google creating software that the government is then using to surveil protests and things like that, will protest and free speech move to the point where really you can only say stuff that won't rock the boat, that will only be considered status quo? Because if you say something that is too radical, will it be simply you end up on a list, on a watch list or something, where the government's now watching you because you attended a particular protest? And this is something that he shows examples is happening like right now. So I think that Moskowitz does a really good job at pointing out some nuances in the debate for free speech. He is biased, and he does say that in the beginning of his book, that he's not offering a non-biased approach to free speech. He's coming from a more liberal leftist point of view, and he is willing to. And he points out a lot of the shortcomings of the right of the right in this book, and but I do think that he challenges a lot of notions that moderates or people consider themselves conservatives have concerning free speech. And I think for that alone, he deserves at least a read, even if you don't agree with him. Like if you disagree with some of the stuff that he says, I think it's well worth at least looking into in this point, because he makes some very interesting ideas. So for me, if I had to rate this book, I'd give it like a 4 out of 5 stars. It was very interesting. I learned like some stuff I didn't learn. It kind of highlighted some, it challenged some of the notions I had on free speech. And for that alone, I give it like I think it's a really good book. So let me know down in the comment section below if you want to read this book, if it's something that interests you, or if you have suggestions for books like it. Let me know down in the comment section below. If you let me know what you thought about this review. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at GhostReads28, on Instagram at Justin the Ghost Reader, and also on Goodreads. The link to that is down in the description box below. So as always, keep reading.